Yeah, we're live. It is 7:40. I'm a little bit late, but that's part of the deal. Today we're going to talk about the reason that I'm late is because I just posted part 2 of the 4.8 liter video. Posted part 1 yesterday as promised, part 2 today on power adders. So we got the how the 4.8 liter responded to naturally aspirated modifications, different kinds of headers, camshafts, intake manifolds, heads cam intake manifold in part 1. And the video that I just posted is more power adder stuff. So, making serious power gain. So we're looking at nitrous. We're looking at a Vortech TI trim supercharger and an S475 T6 turbo from Summit Racing. We didn't turn any of them all the way up, but you kind of get the idea. If you add 100 horsepower with nitrous, it adds about 100 horsepower. If you add 200, it adds about 200. Same thing with the blower stuff and the turbo stuff. As you just go up and boost, you make more and more power. Excuse me. And all that works out really good. Luckily for us, the 4.8 liter responds in the same manner that all the other LS stuff does, really in the same manner that all of the motors do. You start out with some kind of NA configuration, and then when you add boost to it, it multiplies whatever's there, and voila, you have lots of power. So if you put a cam in it and you put ported heads or those kinds of things, and you're starting out with more power to begin with, then you multiply it, you get more power at the end. It works pretty good. In the video, I talked about a couple of situations where these might not be the things that I would choose exactly for this combination. So give you an example, running a single plane intake manifold on a 4.8, probably not something I would pick for my daily driver or even kind of a street strip thing. I think I would, on a 4.8, I think I would stay with a single plane. I mean, stay with a dual plane, because the dual plane is going to rev and make all the power and make a lot more low speed power than the single plane is. And I think it's just a better choice. I've shown it many times where the single plane just basically loses a ton of power everywhere compared to the dual plane, and then they merge at the very, very top at the power peak. So that's not what we want to happen. We want to have all the power everywhere. So we want to have as much as we can. The dual plane provides that. The other thing is on some of these applications, one of them I use a stage 2 turbo cam. I probably wouldn't pick that cam, not for a 4.8. I'd pick a much smaller cam. I'd pick a Truck Norris or something even smaller than a Truck Norris for a turbo application for a 4.8, particularly if I was wanting to run the big T6 turbo. I probably also wouldn't pick a T6 S475 for a 4.8 liter unless I was running lots of RPM and I had a converter and I had gears and we were really trying to run the thing. Then I would choose the combination accordingly to run it in the RPM range where we could spool that thing up and where we could make the boost that we wanted to make and make the power that we wanted to make. So on a 4.8, it becomes a little bit more touchy unless you're wanting to run lots of RPM. Then that's fine. If you want to shift everything up from 6,500 to 8,000 or whatever, that all just works out just fine. Then it is harder on parts though. And for a guy, for daily driver guys where 6,000 or 6,500 is kind of as far as they want to go, then you have to be really mindful of things like that. You have to be mindful of you'll want long runner intake manifolds or dual plane intake manifolds if it's carbureted. You'll want mild cam timing. You don't got to go crazy on the head flow because relatively speaking, it already has really good head flow for the displacement of the motor and the intended power output. And then on turbos, pick a smaller turbo, mild cam, smaller turbo, better boost response, more fun, and then you can make lots and lots of power. If you're going racing and you want to make 1,000 horsepower, 1,500 horsepower, you're going to have 1,000 horsepower turbo or 1,500 horsepower turbo or 1,000 horsepower Vortech or 1,500 horsepower Vortech, whatever you're trying to do. Same thing with nitrous. With nitrous, I usually tend to and it depends, again, always on the application, but the more power that you make NA, and if you're adding 100 horsepower to that, it's better to start out with more and then add 100 to that than it is. You don't want to start out with 300 and add 100, then you get 400. If you start out with 400 and add 100, you get 500, and so on and so on. And I know that you can add 200 or try to add 300, but as you go up in the amount of nitrous that you add, just like with going up in boost on the Vortech or the turbo, that's where the problem areas are. You're not really going to get into problem. You really kind of have to go out of your way. If you're running 7, 8, 10 pounds of boost, you really have to miss by a lot on the air fuel and the timing to have a serious problem. If you miss on the timing, you're definitely going to have a problem. And same thing with nitrous. You can run 100 shots. We've run 100 shots on motors without changing the tune at all. I mean, without taking timing away, without doing anything. If you have enough octane in it and the nitrous adds the nitrous and the fuel, and you add the right amount of that, it just works. It's not going to, but if you start trying to add 150 or 200 or 300, then things get much more problematic much quicker. The tuning window gets really narrow and the problem areas get much bigger, and then you have problems, and then you end up breaking something. So you need to make sure that you don't get greedy about that stuff. But for guys that want street strip stuff, meaning less than 1,000 horsepower, the 4.8, like I said, I would pick a little bit smaller on all the things, smaller on the camshaft, more runner length, smaller on the turbo, and then do that unless you want to make the big power. Then you almost have to do the things, and then you have to figure out a way to make the rest of that stuff work. But luckily, there are things you can do on the other end. If you pick the 1,000 horsepower turbo and you have a 4.8, and you, for some reason, picked a short runner intake manifold and a big camshaft, and the thing is really soft, well, go to the other end. Put a 3,000 or 3,500 stall converter in it. Put 4 series gears in it if it doesn't have 4 series gears in it. Do that stuff if it's an automatic. If it's a manual trans, there's a different situation there. But if it's an automatic and you go up in the stall converter, put a good converter in it, put gearing in it, you can get rid of all of the pesky losses that you have down low, and multiply that torque and get it to work. And then you could get it to come into boost, and it would become much, much happier. So there are some ways around it, but doing that with, big turbos and short runner intake manifolds and wild cam timing, fixing it on the other end is not normally something that guys want to do for the, for drivability for street or even street strip stuff. And rather than doing that, it's much easier just to take the 4.8 out and put a 5.3 or 6.0 in. In the long run, that's probably less expensive to do that than it is to put those other things in it to try to cure the problem that is inherent in trying to make a smaller motor work and try to make lots of power with a smaller motor. Sometimes you can just put a bigger motor in. It makes everything happier. A 5.3 makes a lot more torque than a 4.8 does. It spools the turbo quicker. A 6 liter, even more so. 6 liter spools it up way more. It might have 100 foot-pounds of torque more than a 4.8 does. Just to begin with, just all by itself without doing anything to it. Just put a 6 liter in. It's got 100 more foot-pounds of torque, and it'll spool the turbo up much better. So then making your 1,000 horsepower, since you're also making more NA power, making your 1,000 horsepower, if you have your 1,000 horsepower turbo, all of a sudden you have, hey, look, I got all this spool. Now it's like, now it comes on. It's all great. And also, I can now make my 1,000 horsepower because the 6 liter is making more power. I can make my 1,000 horsepower at a much lower boost level. Again, bring the boost down, fewer problems, lower charge temperature, all of that stuff. Both of the motors will make 1,000 horsepower, and you can certainly do that. It's just that they're going to do it in a different manner. And some guys like to rev. Some guys want that. Some guys like chop. Some guys like to rev it. That's just part of the deal. And all of that can work. But if you haven't, please go take a look at the video that I put up with, how do you not like a video that has nitrous and a blower and a turbo? I mean, that's all just like nothing but good stuff. Okay, the 4.8 liter is the best LS motor for boost. What say you? Eric, what's going on? Kentucky Hunter, what's going on? Howdy, gents. Bob's in the house. I love LS stuff. Yeah, you can never, it's pretty easy to make power with it. What's a good way to buy one of the cams? Looking to get one. Do you have a list, email? Yeah, I put my email up. I'll put it up again, but you can send me an email. Send me an email, and also it's in the description of some of the videos or some of the live feeds where I talked about the camshafts. Gene, happy to help, man. How's everybody going? Twin torque storms. I did run twin torque storms on the 6 liter. Got a 4.8 with a YSI. That's a lot of blower. Yep. 243 heads. What cam would you make it to run 1,000 horsepower? You have to run a lot of RPM with that. So I probably would pick a really big cam. Do you want to spin that thing? It's going to be a lot better with ported heads probably. But you might be able to get to, well, you should be able to get to 1,000 horsepower with a 4.8. And those heads, This actually, well, this combination is not going to make as much power. You're going to have to run a bigger cam. So the BTR hot rod cam, or the red hot cam, or that comp 54 454-11 cam on a 4.8. And I don't know what intake manifold you're using. Let me know, Harley, what intake manifold you're using, because you're gonna have to make a lot of power. I mean, a lot of RPM to make this work. To make 1,000 horsepower with the YSI, it's going to help. But 17 gears, 7 psi at 2,000 RPM. Did you get 7 psi at 2,000 RPM? Oh, with the turbo? Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw your twin torque storm deal, and then you have 7 psi at 2,000 RPM. I'm like, yeah, the torque storms don't normally do that. Swapping 456 gears in, that will get a 4.8 going good. Greetings. I saw a turbo and a cam and piping. Let's do this. Yeah, take a look at the video I just posted. It has all that and more, and an intercooler and a carburetor. It's got all of that stuff. I need gears in my XJs with 37s. That's the problem, is you guys put giant tires on there. They realize, hey, that changed my gearing a lot. I need to change gear in it. Does the 4.8 like higher RPM because it's shorter stroke than the 4.3, or is it just because it's smaller displacement? It doesn't like RPM. It's just that it makes power at a higher RPM because it's smaller, and it will do that. Everything else is relatively bigger on the 4.8, like the head flow and the cam timing and the intake manifold. A 4.8 makes peak power with the same thing, the same components as the 5.3. It makes peak power at a higher engine speed, not because it likes to rev, but because it has to rev. B6, B16, yeah. Mitch Miller and performance. Let's see. Any motor is good for boost if you know how to do it. That's true. Every motor should have boost on it, and boost makes every motor better. When I get better from the stroke, number 5, I want to do 231 doubler for size. That's number 5. That's a lot. That's somebody trying to tell you something. 231, 242. That's a lot of cam for a 4.8. We've run stuff like that though. Can I run 105 millimeter on a 5.3 with a BFD monster cam and bolt-ons? You can run whatever you want. It's 105 millimeter turbo with a BFD cam is probably not going to be ideal unless you're trying to make, like, 1,500 horsepower at a very high engine speed. Oh, so you're trying to work out a trade there, Todd? Twin 231s has been my goal forever. On the topic of detonation, okay, I found that some diesel setups made use of combustion cylinder pressure relief valves triggered at something like 3,300 psi to save the engine. I've never seen that. I'd like to look into that. The problem is they have to be very fast acting, because a detonation sequence is pretty quick. And are they getting rid of the pressure before there's a problem? Is it a pre-detonation relief, like the old compression releases on the 2-stroke bikes? So you take the heads off a 4.8 and put it on a 5.3. Is that an upgrade for a 5.3? No, the 4.8 and the 5.3 have the same heads on them. Have you ever heard about that in my racing? I'm not really in racing circles, and I've never heard of that before. Anybody from Minnesota have a deal on a Holley EFI 105 millimeter intake. Any chance of making a 4200 playlist? I can make the playlist. I don't know how. I don't think I have too many videos on the 4200 though. Oh, Todd, you just want it for a spare? Mitch, I don't really know what you mean by thoughts. Diesel killer has a compression release. Yeah, I don't do very much with diesel stuff. I mean, I had a 2008 Dodge 3500 that had a Cummins in it, and we did some stuff on the chassis dyno, but I've not done any really extensive diesel work. Sorry, I meant, can I run a 105 millimeter throttle body or Holley intake on a 5.3 with a big cam and bolt-ons? Tuner said I don't have enough power. He's incorrect in that. You can run whatever intake that you want. It doesn't matter. What intake are you wanting to run? Is it a high ram? Is it a low ram? That's more important. And if you tell us what you're trying to get done, I can kind of help steer you in the right direction. Is there any coil on plug conversion for the 5.9 Magnum? I don't know. Somebody else might. Does anybody have any information on that? I don't know why you would want to do that. There's the distributor is not a limiting factor for that. Or tore into an 86-302. Okay. Fresh build, had a ton of blow by. Someone put standard 4-inch pistons in 30 over bore. It definitely would have blow by if you did that. I'm surprised it didn't rattle around and damage stuff. I have dual 340 aeromotive pumps assembly. Should I stage the pumps on my Holley ECUs? I heard the guys having the second pump kick on at a target boost or just run it constantly. Heard it heats the fuel up. It would be nice if you can stage it. There's no reason for you to have those pumps going all the time while you're just driving around, because all you're having to do is have your system bypass that. You want a mid-rise? Okay, that's not what I would recommend, but the throttle body size is not going to affect anything. The only problem you might have, it's going to draw in the amount of air that the motor needs, regardless of the throttle body size, unless it's too small. If it's too big, it doesn't matter. The only thing that happens with a throttle body that's big is that it gets really touchy on initial throttle input. So it can be kind of jerky and surgy. But other than that, you're fine. We run 105 millimeter throttle bodies on the vast majority of 5.3s that I put together. Anything that has a fast manifold on it, which we like to put on lots of stuff, anything that has an MSD manifold on it, anything that has a high ram on it, they're all either 102 to 105 millimeter throttle bodies, and they work fine on a 5.3, especially one that has cam and has heads on it. It's fine. When was your last Mike's Lemonade with your favorite clear beverage? Oh, watching some of the older videos. You know, now that you say that, I haven't had one of those in a while, and I think it's starting to warm up. So I think it's time. I think it's time for some happy hour and horsepower. I think I need to get Lisa going on that. Well, I heard that the skirt wear on a 4-inch stroke LS deal with Driven Daily is pretty bad. So I wonder if you've seen it. If you feel bad about it, put one together with a 3900 stroke. I honestly don't think it's going to be an issue. It's a mid-rise. Yeah, I've run all of the Holley intake manifolds, so I know what they all do. That's not the one that I would pick if you're picking an intake manifold. If you already have it, it will work. I have videos up on how well it works. You can take a look at that. Yeah, Todd, that's a good deal. Are those things serial numbered, Todd? I'm missing my OM 617. 4.8 with all the boosts is a secret engine for an F-22 Raptor. It's a Skunk Works, the 4.8 Skunk Works. Mike's Purple Freeze is delicious. Let's see. Porsche had the relief valves on their diesels in the 80s or 90s. Okay. The cylinder walls are scarred from the standard piston in a 30 over. That's a lot. I mean, like 10 over might work, but the pistons flop around. Yeah. On the YSI 4.8, I was looking at a Victor Junior style intake, unless there would be a better one. There would be a better. All of the EFI intake manifolds would be better than that. Running hydro boost of vacuum is less of a concern. Can you discuss lobe separation angle versus vacuum? And what's the general limits for idle vacuum? What's too tight for LSA? The LSA isn't the only thing that dictates the idle vacuum, though. So it's not, you can't say, well, at 120, it's fine, but at 108, it's not. It doesn't work that way. You can change the other valve events and have bad idle vacuum. You could put a bunch of duration in and have bad idle vacuum. You could change the valve events and have bad idle vacuum. So that's not really a thing. Yeah, I like to look at the bigness of the cam. And you could put a small cam in it that has a really tight LSA and it still idles fine. Should I mill my L83 heads for compression, 1,000 horsepower turbo build? No. The turbo is going to dictate how much power it makes. And how are you going to get the fuel to your 1,000 horsepower L83 turbo build? Too much horsepower, if any, free up by going to an electric water pump. Yeah, I have videos up on electric water pump. I'm sure that it's probably got to be, I don't know, 8 or 9. Does anybody remember on the accessory video? Much harder with a squeeze of lemon. Yep, tastes much better. That's right. It's I like to say that it's a Mike's Hard Lemonade, but with a purpose. And we even used to put the flavored stuff in there too. It's good. I think it's a good engine for boost because I can have both characters, tame and high revving, high horsepower. And if it breaks, they don't cost too much. That's right. You can have the wrecking yard. Just go get another one. Okay, Todd, 5.3 is the best because that's what's on the stand. Whatever engine you have is a good one. Max boost you've successfully run in a stock truck intake. If they failed from pressure, what was it? I've never had a failure from any truck manifold from boost. I don't think you're going to run enough boost to make that happen. I think you'd be more likely to break it with a nitrous backfire. It's the instantaneous pressure wave that causes the problem. I don't know that you'd split one under boost. We've run, I'm sure, mid-20s on them. 5.3 is best because the cost is cheap. The 5.3 and a 4.8 are the same price at the wrecking yards I go to. Building my first turbo 4.8 liter based off results from your dyno session. Going to use a little nitrous to get it out of the hole. I appreciate the work. Putting into performance. A little bit of nitrous down low goes a long way on that. So start out small when you're adding nitrous to your turbo stuff. yeah, I got you, Todd. I got you. Took apart my first quadrijet today. Yay, that's good. That's a rite of passage for everybody. Everybody should do that. Everybody should rebuild a carburetor. I built the 402 deal for my daily driver G-body wagon with an average 300 shot of nitrous. When racing on weekends, I figured I'd test the rumor. I don't think we talk about this on the Ford side too with the 347s and all that, and 383 Chevys. I'm like, how many people have their motors and drive them on a build like that? How many people drive them enough? Like, how many people drive them 100, 200, 300,000 miles where you would start to worry about something like that? I just don't think people do. On a 4.8 liter is an electric water pump, a good bang for the buck, doesn't free up any power. You'll be seeing what happens in the real world coming up pretty soon. I have accessory videos up where we tested electric water pumps. An electric water pump would be good, and it should improve fuel mileage and should improve power. And I'm going to be testing that very shortly. I'm going to be doing it on a 5.3, but it will be the same. I want to shave off the junk out of my trunk. I want to shave all the junk off the top of my LQ9 intake. Anything I must keep. No fancy covers, planning remote coil mounts, shaving anything that's not required. Yeah, you're going to shave off all the braces and stuff. You want to keep one opening at least. You want to keep all the vacuum openings. If you're going to retain those, you can plug them. You want to have one opening at least for the map sensor. Did I mess up putting a full floating rear end out of 2,500 into a 1,500? I don't know. Does anybody have thoughts on that? Y'all. Oh, Bob, you're doing shots? That's not good. TSP Titan or Holley High Ram? A high ram is going to be, and it depends on what RPM range you're talking about. The best engine, in my opinion, is the biggest one you can get for as little money as possible. Yeah, if a 6 liter is the same price as a 4.8 or a 5.3, then you get the bigger motor, obviously. But the 6 liters always cost more when you're trying to do that. For staging my fuel pumps, what safeties can I use as a precaution if the second one doesn't kick on? I don't know how you're going to do that on the Holley. I'm not that familiar with it. Gotta look up something here. Just making a call real quick. I have to arrange stuff for my son. So I might have to cut out early because I got to go pick up my son. What sort of fuel pressure cutoff? I don't know if you can put a switch on it for pressure. Maybe you could. Should I rebuild the turbo out of my 6.4 Power Stroke and stick it on a 3.9? I mean, how much is it going to cost you to rebuild it? Because new turbos are so cheap. 4.62 valves are the best because I pick them up for free. 4-bar 4.8. I've never done that. You could try that. Everybody should learn on carburetors. Does anybody know if the EGR valve in the early 4.8s affect how fast the RPMs drop after revving? My truck RPMs hang for a little bit, but I'm wondering if when I delete the EGR, if it will drop faster. Does anybody have any idea on that? Draco, you want 400 wheel horsepower from your LS1? Take a look. I have a bunch of LS1 videos up that show what the power output is. What you're looking at is you'll need something that's around 500 flywheel horsepower, but that's not hard to get. Richard, I'm looking into buying rolling engine stands for transporting. Offer up as a set for $65 local. Okay. All of my stands, all the Harbor Freight ones are all rolling stands. If I put a 6 in place of my 5.3, can I just reprogram the ECU or replace it? I don't know if the harness is exactly the same on the 6 liter as it is for a 5.3. Maybe it is on the early ones. Maybe you can just plug in a new computer. If anybody knows on the factory stuff, please let me know. Why am I not seeing all of these? I know what we'll do. We're going to go to live chat, and then I've got to get going. I'm going to close out our poll here. 62% are saying, no, it's not the best motor. Ironically, in this area, because the 5.3 is so popular for boosting on the internet, I've seen 6 liters cheaper. Well, give me about 6 or 8 of those. Had an argument with my Ford buddy about LS motors. He swears up and down LS needs sleeves over 600 horsepower. Yeah, that's not that's not anywhere near accurate. Tell him there's a 1 in front of that 6. And the blocks are never the problem. On a stock bottom end, you can run, we've run 1500. Yeah, Dylan, there and Summit is not the cheapest game in town for turbos either. You could probably find them cheaper than that. If I stroke the 5.3 to 6 liter, would that work? You can stroke a 5.3, but it's not going to get to a 6 liter. A 6 liter is a bigger bore. A 6 liter and a 5.3 share the same stroke. They both have a 3.622 stroke. The 5.3 is a 3.780 bore, and the 6 liter is a 4-inch bore. We're boring out of 5.3, 4.8 block to 4 inches to see if there's enough room there, but we'll see what happens. And that note, it is time to go. Unfortunately, I've got to cut out early. I got to go pick up my son from soccer. But I will. The good news is I'll be back tomorrow. And if you haven't, please go take a look at the 4.8 video with the turbos and stuff. And also, if you are interested in a cam, please send me an email. I put my email up there if you're looking for some kind of LS cam. And I have some other ones, maybe some Ford and Chevy ones or stuff. I need to get rid of a bunch of stuff that's in my storage. So please let me know, and I will be back tomorrow. Click the wrong button.